Thank you, Congressman Holzkamp, for your leadership with the Heartland Institute, which for such a long time has been truly trying to do what the Galen Institute also is doing, and that's really putting patients and doctors back at the center of our healthcare system. So thank you so much for your doing. Can I close this in order with, or is that going to cause any problem? Because I need to look at my notes and I don't want to drop my phone here. So, and thank you for holding this forum here. I think it's just so important for Heartland to continue to focus and pound on the need for the FDA to get out of its hidebound mentality and bring new drugs to market faster and cheaper. And that certainly is a high priority of the Trump administration. You see that Alex Azar, HHS Secretary, by the way, he'll be on the main stage this afternoon at around 3:30 with also Labor Secretary Acosta. I'll be moderating a panel with them and also with SBA Administrator McMahon to talk about some of these issues as well. So we're taking it from here to the main stage of the of CPAC to really address these issues. And Secretary Azar has said a number of times that every time he talks to the president, which is apparently many times a week, the president said, "What are you doing to get drug prices down?" And the entire sixth floor of HHS, when you go up there, is just a buzz with activity to try to do what they can. And the latest proposal, I just had a piece that I posted today on Forbes about the rebate proposal, sort of an explainer and talking about what this is going to do, and hopefully get lower prices for seniors in Part D in particular, but also Medicaid, managed care organizations, to get lower prices to them when they show up at the pharmacy counter. So I think those are really, really important proposals. But what we're here to talk about today, and and talk about some of the ways we can do this, is to talk about how do we get from a system in which only 1 in every 1,000 drugs that gets to the preclinical trial stage actually gets through the approval, and only 1 out of 8 of those get through the approval process. And it costs nearly $3 trillion and 15 years to be able to do that. So getting the process simplified, make it more efficient, get away from this sense that it really is, as the Congressman said, this is getting away from the sense that the bureaucracy is there to sustain itself rather than to do the job that it's supposed to do. And was reading about a statement by FDA recently about some of their new modernization strategies, and one of them says, you'll get a kick out of this, that they have a new they have an Office of New Drugs and a Center for Drug Evaluation and Research. And you have to ask yourself, isn't that what the FDA should have been doing all along? Why do they need a new center for that? But I think that what Scott Gottlieb, the FDA commissioner, has done is, I mean, he understands this bureaucracy from his time there as an associate commissioner in the George W. Bush administration. And he understands it as a physician. He understands it as a policy person and some of the work that he's done with the industry. And he understands how difficult it is for companies to continue to make these investments when they see actually a wall of bureaucracy at the other end. And if we want to continue to have the new drugs that Frank was talking about that actually can be cures, not just treatments, but cures, we have to have those investments continue. And I think what Scott is looking at is how can we make this process more efficient? How can we use technology better, not only to help companies get through the drug approval process, but to use it to be able to gain information about these drugs in real time, when they're in clinical trial, making the clinical trials more efficient. Apparently it's the average patient lives 2 hours away from a clinical trial center for a drug trial that they might be eligible for. And one of the things that Scott is doing is trying to approve more sites so that we can still get quality information out of these clinical trials, but make a larger patient base eligible and available so that they can have better data and better data quicker, because recruiting patients is always a huge challenge. So some of the things that that FDA is doing, and I cannot overestimate how important Heartland's leadership is in keeping the pressure on the FDA to do this, and Frank's work with the Abigail Alliance and other organizations that see how difficult it is to work with the FDA. The FDA is actually setting up a new pipeline to get more information from patients and from patient advocacy groups, have that be a bigger part of the process. I think that Ed's going to be talking to you about the work that was done around the AIDS approval process and how that really did break down a lot of the bureaucracy. And it's so much of what SBA does, it does because of law that tells it how it has to operate, as well as regulatory policy. So they've really got to figure out how they're going to make things more efficient and allow this agency to use a lot of the information technologies, even crowdsourcing, that we're seeing as transformative forces in the private sector, but that are so difficult for the public sector to really be able to utilize. And a quote from Scott Gottlieb. He said, "We don't use technology well in clinical trials. We collect information to either collect information and use it and do quality checks on data collected. We can provide better oversight and lower development costs and open up more by opening up more trial sites and a number of other things that he's trying to do." But I think he knows enough to be able to dig deeply into the process to figure out what are some of the smaller things that can do that could have a bigger impact. And also getting more information, not feeling that they have to, not believing that they have to get all of the information before the drug approval the drug is approved, but allowing more of a flow of information so that you can have post-clinical trial real-world data that is utilized in order to be able to find out how the drug is working in the real world, not just in the more artificial clinical trial setting. And the perfect example of that, I think, is Vioxx, where had we known earlier in the process that this really should not be approved for people with heart problems, then this really valuable drug that many people, that was the very best drug for them, is now pulled off the market because there was not enough information up front about how to properly use this drug. And of course we're seeing with specialty medicines that's really where the industry is going, in trying to figure out how are we going to tailor drugs to specific patient populations by learning more about that patient and the likelihood that that drug is going to work. It seems that we're going to look back, I think, on the days when everybody was blasted with hugely toxic chemotherapy drugs to see if it would work, when we now can learn in advance with many of these drugs that the drug does not work for people that have certain, for example, genetic markers. Learning that kind of information up front, being able to have diagnostics that are associated with the drug so that people can utilize them more properly and make sure that they go to the right person, the right drug, to the right person at the right time, and as President Trump would say, to make sure that people can afford it. And that's probably a whole nother program. I apologize, you all, because of being on the main stage. I've got some pre-meetings I have to do, so I have to step away, but I want to again thank all of you and thank you for your work, and thank you, Ed, for the paper that you've done that I think really helps to show what the FDA can do and what it needs to do, so we need to keep the pressure on. So thank you all very much.